Good to come your way this very moment. I'm discussing with you on the subject title values. Values are very important in life because they drive our actions, they determine the decisions and the choices we make, they determine the direction and even the outcomes of our lives. And so we are looking at this very important subject, and I'll start off by giving a dictionary definition of what values are. The word values is, according to the Advanced English Dictionary, defines it as beliefs of a person or social group in which they have an emotional investment, which is normally for or against something. I'll take that again. Values, according to the Advanced English Dictionary, means beliefs of a person or social group in which they have an emotional investment, which is normally for or against something. So that values also are as a result of the beliefs that we hold on to. And so you would say that our belief systems, if you like, have also can craft values for us. So it's not strange that we can have religious values, we can have cultural values and things like that. And so there, and if you want to look at the same word from a moral point of understanding or giving it a moral definition, you will say that values also are the concern of society about right and wrong. You can also define it as the concern of society, which about right and wrong, and that is giving it a moral definition, or if you like, yes, a moral definition. Now, can we look at what the significance of values are? And number one, I'll say that they define what is socially acceptable or what is socially good or evil, right or wrong. So we can say that values define for us social sanctions that which helps the society to determine what is right and wrong. That is a significance of values. And then we will say that they are considered very important by society. So you see, values are what ideas that society considers very important. They give something society something to consider as very important, something they hold and they cherish. Number three, they are at play when a person interacts with the wider world or has to make a decision that will have a consequence on others. So it's simply saying that in this significance, we can also get the idea that values are not things that can be hidden. If you would always take time to listen to people, to observe and analyze their actions, their choices, and the things they say, you will find in the value system that holds the person, or the values that drive that person. Now, in terms of the significance, we'd also say that values provoke the consideration of moral philosophy or ethics. And here I would argue as a theologian that when you talk about moral philosophy and moral and ethical philosophy, they are not the same. Now, the two are coming from two different origins or sources. Moral philosophy originates in God, it is religious, and moral philosophy are God's imperatives. He issues them, they are prescriptive. He directs them and he says, this is it. For instance, the Bible says, thou shalt be holy, for I am holy. It's not any man who said that, it's God who said that, and has expected those who are obedient to him to follow it. So moral philosophy is from God. Then ethical philosophy is an adaptation, if you like, from religion. They adopted what God has given, what is in religion, what is in Christianity, but just to regulate themselves and their society. And in doing so, they purged it of God. They purged the ethics of God, and they took God out of it and they humanized it. they made it human-centered, and they began to craft it in their own way. So moral, ethical philosophy originates in man, and you see that is highly inconsistent with moral philosophy. That's how come you enter an organization and they have what's called organizational or ethical code. And in this ethical code, it's basically about the externals, what is observable. And so it teaches the people how to relate to people, how to address them, how to dress, and the rules that govern their operations and whatever they do in that workplace. But you will discover that in this same workplace, let's call it a bank, in this same workplace, this one man has his wife also as a staff there, and he has a girlfriend in there. And if you dare talk about it, they will tell you that's his private life. They have what is called an ethical code. Yet somebody is involved in a relationship that morally is not right, because that kind of relationship, he's married and has a girlfriend. The Bible will consider that as adultery. But they are saying it is his moral life and his private life, and you don't go into it. I think that such people should even be charged with conflict of interest. You, one man in the same organization, you have a wife married to you there, and you have another girlfriend in there. But ethics don't look at it like that, because it's on the externals. Morality looks at it comprehensively, looks at it from the inside out, looks at what is inside the heart of a man, if you like, the mind of the man, and his behavior outward. The two must be together for a man to be moral in the sight of God. So that's the difference between ethical philosophy and moral philosophy. In as much as values provoke the consideration of moral philosophy and ethics, we need to make that distinction as I have made. Now, how do people form values? How do we form values? It's important to know that values are formed from at least three factors, and I'll outline them and explain each one of them. Number one is life experience. The things we go through by way of encounters and the impressions they make on us, the mark they make on us, the impact on us. If we ponder them, they teach us lessons. So life experiences impact us to develop what is called values. If people have lived, for instance, grown up in poverty, and they have known the vicissitudes of poverty, the hardships, and all the evil it brings upon a person, it might form in that person the value for money. And so this person may be driven to prioritize money and may go at it, and if they don't have good morals, then they will care less about how they make their money, and they may even go to the extent of making money at the expense of their fellow man. Life experience would have tuned them that way, where money is above everything for them, and it comes even before the life of a human being. And for such people, their life experience are giving them that sense of or the value of money in the manner that they look at money. So life experience, nurturing, the way we were brought up. We have all been brought up either through the hands of parents or people who we lived with, people who adopted us or who raised us up in our growing years. In our growing years, we form, or values are formed in us by what we are exposed to, what our parents teach us, or those who raised us teach us. For some, they were given the value of God or godliness. They were taken to church very early. They were taught to respect God and to obey His word. And so the obedience to the word of God, the respect, the honor, the worship of God is a value for them. So nurturing can also impart values to us. And then our socialization. Our socialization basically talks about the social circles that we have been privileged to have been circulating in, and these places can be, if you call them environments, a community, a culture, a place where you lived, and in these places, lifestyles, culture, way of doing things that in themselves also form values in us. And I use a very, sorry to say, an example that gives us a graphical understanding, even though I'm narrating it. For instance, if somebody grew in a society where there are very limited amenities of life, and so there are no washrooms, places of convenience, and so they have to bath outside. And they've been doing that from when they were little children, and they have grown like that. If you felt nature's call, any place was okay to do it, and everybody spoke anyhow. Anything went in that society. This may form in these people a certain attitude which will give them a certain value. He has been exposing himself from little child into his teens and into a full-grown adult. And so going outside or along the street and dropping things is nothing new or nothing strange to that person. And that in itself would form the value of not respecting himself and the environment which he uses. And so he might end up abusing environments, throwing things about, talking anyhow. And so the value of respect for himself, which must, if you must respect yourself to extend that to other people. And if he doesn't have that respect for himself, then he will treat everybody casually, the environment casually, and speak casually to and without a sense of respect and dignity for somebody. And so we are saying that our socialization can also form in us values. Now, so now let's look at examples of values, and I'll give you the examples. A common example is loyalty, spirituality, humility, holiness, if you like, righteousness, godliness, uprightness, integrity, compassion, honesty, kindness, if you like, selflessness. We can add a lot to this list, and there are several of them. But I'm all the example I've given you are all good values. Unfortunately, people also have bad values. If you go back to the example that I gave about money, if this person will make it at the expense of his fellow man, it's a bad value he has developed. So these are values, and so you would say that values are virtues. They are qualities, and they can become personal characteristics that we hold dearly and we cherish, that we don't compromise on it. Values are important because at the end of the day, it becomes the reference for our actions, as to why I want this and I don't want that, as to why I want to go in this direction and I don't want the other, as to why I'm making this choice and I'm not making the other choice. They are all driven by values. You often hear people say that, well, people have become criminals, they have become deviants in society because they lack economic empowerment or they lack education. I beg to differ that most of the time, the reason why people do the wrong things is not because of deprivation and disadvantage or no. But most of the time, except in few instances, which I think that in those cases, those people who do that might need the attention or the help of psychologists and psychiatrists. By reason, and that may be because they have personality disorders. But apart from that, if they are sound and normal people and they are doing the things that scandalize them, like stealing, armed robbery, and all the bad things that people do, which will land them in problem, and they are doing that with a careless abandon, regardless of their own lives, their self-worth, their dignity, and so on and so forth. It is simply a matter of the values that they have formed or grown up with. It is values that drive us, and that is why somebody wouldn't make that choice, and that's why somebody wouldn't make that choice. Now, in historical times, people were burnt to death, they were offered to animals, their throats were cut because of their values. They were told, recant or renounce Jesus, say he's not Lord, and you will have your life, or you say Jesus is Lord and this is what will happen to you. They were ready to say Jesus is Lord and to be killed, or their children thrown into fire before their eyes. Why? Because they had the value of faith in Jesus Christ. And that's what values will do to a man. People don't compromise on it. They will die for their values. So values drive us. They are the reason why we do the things we do. And please, everybody holds some values to his chest. And so if you go back to look at the factors that we spoke about, life experience, nurturing, and socialization, it should give us a wake-up call to begin to do a self-assessment of the values that we cherish. Now, we would, in this self-assessment, we would be able to tell whether we have a preponderance of good values or a preponderance of bad values, or maybe altogether wrong or bad values. When we do the self-analysis, it will help us. We need that self-consciousness to be able to do that, because our values drive us. And many of us do things they don't understand, and at the end of the day, they feel sorry they did what they did, but they continue to do it. It is because their values are driving them all the time. So it is time for us to put them on the table and to say, look at everyone and say, this one, no, this one, this one, no, that one, that. When we do that, then it will help us to be able to come to terms about what we have held so long, which are not helpful to us, and begin to realign ourselves to values that are good, that will ensure that our lives are decent, where our lives, there's dignity in our lives, and we stand for what is right, what is good. That is what you and I need to do, because whether you like it or not, you have values, and those values drive you, and they are the underneath of your actions. They explain why you do the things you do. They explain why you answer people the way you do. They explain your choices, and similarly. Now, how can we be able to stay on the course of good values, right values, righteous values? We can only do that by understanding the reason for living, or life. Life is a gift from God. We didn't come into the world by accident, and we were made in the image of God to fulfill a purpose on this planet, every one of us. Well, scientists will tell us that we are matter. Politicians and sociologists, and because of that, politicians and sociologists have coined a phrase. They say that we are social animals. Well, and it's flowing from that scientific or humanistic understanding that we are mere matter, we die, and that's the end of it. We are more than matter. We are not social animals. We are human beings made in the image of God. He made us out of matter, and He breathed into us a life-giving effect that animated us, and that is the breath of life that came from God Himself. And so there's a part of us that is alive, and so we are bodies that is matter, but we are spirit people. We are spirit people who are encapsulated in a soul. That is the composition of man. And that's why Paul would pray, say, I pray God, your whole spirit and soul be preserved blameless. And this idea about the tripartite being of a human being is something that has engaged Greek philosophy, it has engaged traditional religion and other religions across. So human beings are not mere matter. And because He made us in His image for a purpose, He put in us vision. Every human being has a vision. Every human being aspires to do something, to achieve something, and God gives us the drive to rise up to fulfilling our aspirations and visions in life. So we have got to understand life, that we are here for a purpose, but life is transient. It is not forever. it will come to an end at a certain point. Live to be 120 years, you would exit here. But you go and meet your Creator in account of your life. Now, when we understand life in this light, then it helps us to live not only for here, but we also prepare for eternity. And in this understanding, which helps us to prepare for eternity, we can do so by two things: service, lifestyle. Service, lifestyle. So our lifestyle must be driven by good values, godly values. The things that engage us, the things that we indulge in should be driven by good values. And our service, what we do in terms of productive output to give outcomes of rewards, and of rewards and benefits, it should be driven by good values, so that at the end of our service we haven't exploited our fellow man, but we have exploited our opportunities and our advantages, and we have exercised ourselves in the upright and righteous application of our skills, our labor, our competencies, our capacities and capabilities, our qualifications, which will in the end benefit society, humanity, bring greater social good or for society. That is the way to go whilst we prepare for ourselves for eternity in the meanwhile that we are here. Service, lifestyle, but they should be driven by values that make us please God and please our fellow man. You see, it's difficult to please men, but if you please God, you will please God, you please men, even your enemies. At the end of the day, they will say, well, we don't like this, but he's a good man, he's a righteous person, he's upright, and so on and so forth. So that is the way to go. Preparing ourselves by values that drive our service and our lifestyle. And the third thing, apart from lifestyle and service, everything we do must be centered on God. In other words, God must be our center. If God is your center, then God is the reason why you do what you do. God is the reason why you behave the way you behave, is the reason why you say the things you say. When God is your center, He is your frame of reference, and that center, you see, centers pull us together and organizes us so that our life doesn't go astray. Our life doesn't go in just any direction that is not planned, that is not focused, and so that we don't chase vanity. So our lives must be centered on God if we are going to be able to maintain good values and live to fulfill the purpose for which we were made on the planet. Understanding life is how it starts. And when you understand life, why God gave it, it prepares you, it helps you to prepare for eternity. And in this preparation, you render services and lifestyle, you lead lifestyle that are driven by values that are right. And then thirdly, you are God-centered. If you choose not to live, not to have a center, you'll be like a boat that is drifting. Your center is like the anchor of life, and God is the only one who provides that center for us. And so we need God in your life to make you become a person of great values, so your values will direct you in the right paths for the benefit of yourself and for humanity and for the glory of God. God bless you. I'll catch you again.